Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 15, Episode 30. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Friday, Steelers Nation, as we get ready for week number 4 as the undefeated Pittsburgh Steelers will try to go on a 4-game winning streak as they travel to Indy to play the Colts this Sunday afternoon. Pittsburgh's third road game in 4 weeks. Kind of a crazy start to the schedule, but looking forward to this one. Looking forward to previewing the game here with Dave here in just 1 second. And Dave, I'm sure that you're very happy to be out in Vegas and not in Florida. And we hope everyone who's been impacted by Hurricane Helene is safe and gotten through the storm, because this one was a nasty one, Dave.
Yeah, man, you hit on it there. And I don't know how many times over the last couple of days I told my wife, man, I'm so glad we moved from Florida there on the Gulf Coast and out to Vegas back in 2016. And I can remember going through Hurricane Ivan back in 2004. It's hard to believe it's been that long ago, but I swore at that time that would be. And I grew up obviously down there, been through the hurricane drill so many times over the years. But when Ivan hit, I said that's the last one that I definitely ride out on my own. So my heart goes out and prayers goes out to all the people that were affected by it this time. And man, even on up into Georgia, it's pretty rough there. But I do not miss having to go through that drill. I will tell you that. So, all right, we got an exciting show on tap today, don't we?
We do have a great guest later on. We'll talk to Nate Atkins, who covers the Colts for the Indy Star, get his perspective on the Colts start and where their strengths are, their weaknesses, and a pretty lengthy injury situation for the Colts. And speaking of which, Dave, let's dive right on into the health of the Pittsburgh Steelers through Thursday. As always, the final Friday report will come out after today's show, and so you'll have to check back for that one a little bit later on. But Pittsburgh, a lot of rest this week, and so the injury report's been super long, but a lot of that has been just rest related and really no cause for concern. So Thursday, the guys who didn't practice due to injury were Jaylen Warren with the knee. He is yet to practice on Wednesday or Thursday. Alex Highsmith with a groin injury. Michael Pruitt with a knee. Highsmith and Pruitt, they're not going to play this weekend. Warren, it's certainly trending in the wrong direction. We'll have to see his game status for Friday. Wouldn't be shocked if a doubtful label came in on him, but we'll have to wait and see. Limited this week have been quarterback Russell Wilson with the Cats, status quo there. Isaac Seumalo has returned to practice, which is certainly a nice boost for this offense, but he's been limited the first 2 days. Not sure if he's going to go this weekend. Kind of doubted at this point. And there's a report from Mark Cabali that Mason McCormick plans to start this weekend at left guard. So that would obviously suggest that Seumalo's not going to go this week. Roman Wilson, Van Jefferson, Deshaun Elliott, those guys have been full. They should be good to go. So really looking towards, I think, Seumalo and Warren being the names to watch, Dave.
Yeah, starting to get the sense, at least from the beat reporters too, who can't come right out and say if they know something. I don't think, but I think most of the speculation is that Warren, and look, I've learned not to speak in absolutes over the years when it comes to this, but it does feel like Jaylen Warren is in great jeopardy of missing this game. And when you just look at the way it feels like things are trending right now, at least 5 names on the inactive list. Russell Wilson, the third quarterback, once again. It feels like I'm with you. Isaac Seumalo's not going to go in this one, so I would expect him on it. And then Alex Highsmith and Michael Pruitt both being out would be on the inactive list. And then if Jaylen Warren does not go, that makes 5 right there. That's it. That's a complete at least initial inactive list. It will be interesting to watch on Saturday if one of these running backs in Shampkin or Jonathan Ward get elevated. And there's several reasons to kind of look out for that. Might Roman Wilson get squeezed out of the helmet once again due to maybe one of these elevations here? And I think Jerry Dulac in his chat or one of these reports this past week thinking that we might be waiting again for Roman Wilson to get a helmet. Now, you could go other directions if you did elevate a running back such as Ward or Shamklin. You could leave Terrell Edmonds on the inactive list. But that to me seems like the biggest mystery at this point as we head into Friday and wait for the final injury report is will Jaylen Warren end up doubtful or out? And if he indeed winds up not playing, looking forward to the Saturday elevation and then the guessing game about if only one player is elevated, who is that final inactive on there?
If Warren is inactive, is it a certainty they're going to elevate a running back? I know you had mentioned, in a pinch, you could use Connor Hayward, but really to have two true running backs, if somebody goes down, that's asking a lot. So I feel like you almost have to elevate, Ward at that point.
Yeah, short answer is I don't know 100% what's going to happen on Saturday, but I caution everybody to be around a computer at least to see what happens come to cutoff day, because it would make sense for them to elevate one of those running backs there, and probably Jonathan Ward, because he's got a nice little special teams history, doesn't he?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and some NFL experience as well, which can suit him well in this game. So we'll have to see, but those will be the names to watch for on the final injury report. And we assume at this point Russell Wilson will continue to be questionable on Friday and then inactive on Sundays. That's still a fair assessment.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's go over to the Colts and Nate. Whenever we talk with Nate Atkins a little bit, we'll go through some of the injuries more. But the Colts have a pretty long list. They've been dealing with the injury bug already this season, losing DeForest Buckner to IR. He, of course, will not play in this game. Be really watching for that secondary. Got a lot of injuries there with Kenny Moore, their great nickel corner. Even his backup, Chris Lamons, has not practiced this week. Really defensively, just trying to look for who's going to be available there, because that Colts defense seems to be hurting right now.
Absolutely. That's going to be the side of the football to watch, even if some of those guys play, because they are banged up. I think Kenny Moore's been dealing with that hip injury, and it would obviously be a huge loss after them not already losing DeForest Buckner if Kwity Paye can't play in this game. So, yeah, defensive side of football and injuries or the injury report on Friday will certainly be worth paying attention to, and we'll write about that on SteelersDepot.com later in the afternoon for sure.
All right, Dave, let's get into the happenings of this week. Let me throw just a random question at you to start. I got this one in my Ask Alex mailbag yesterday that I do each Thursday at 2:30 Eastern time. Somebody asked me, is this the best secondary that TJ Watt has been, playing in front of, I guess you could say, since being drafted in 2017? And I thought, well, the 2019-2020 groups of, you had Hayden, Nelson, Hilton at corner, and then Edmonds and Minka, at least, once acquired in 19 at safety. Is that a better group, or is the current group of having Porter and Dante Jackson and Beanie Bishop and then Deshaun Elliott and Minka Fitzpatrick, is that a better group? I know we're 3 games in. It's hard to maybe make that comparison, but somebody had asked me that. I went with the 19 and 20 group. What say you?
Yeah, that is a very tough question, and I would boil it down to the nickel maybe in both those situations. This team still hasn't gotten over yet, and hopefully Beanie Bishop continues to develop and becomes a long-time guy in that spot. And obviously, at some point, we'll see what hopefully Cameron Sutton can add to this defense later on in the season when he gets off the suspended list. But my gut feel when you ask that is to go with the earlier defense, and primarily because Mike Hilton was just so good with the timing off the edge and what he could provide in run support and just a physical player and coverage and all. So I think that would be Mike Hilton would be the sole difference there that would tilt that in favor of that earlier defense.
Yeah, I would agree. What do you think about Beanie Bishop so far? It is nice to have, because he's been like an every down slot corner, which Pittsburgh has not utilized since Mike Hilton, and that has been nice to have. What do you think of his play overall?
I just think it's been up and down overall, and I think it's just part of him just trying to learn nuances and things that he's asked to do specifically in that defense, and trusting players and around him and what his role is. So I don't think it's been been bad by any stretch of imagination. I just think it's been very inconsistent overall. So I think as he gets more games underneath his belt, hopefully he can trend in the right direction there. I view it as inconsistent, more incomplete than anything, because as you said, you're only 3 games into the season here.
Yeah, I think that's fair overall. I think the angles have to be worked on a little bit, but he's been competitive and certainly not been a liability. They've not asked a ton out of him, but overall a fine start for Beanie Bishop. One of the storylines of the day that might be not a storyline as we're recording this here on Friday morning, but apparently Zaire Franklin says he wants to snatch a terrible towel this weekend. And so that is a bad move. We do not advise that kind of a curse to put on yourself, but that is what the award is out of the Colts top linebacker.
Oh boy, just go back to the tread lightly. Look what happened to the Jaguars last time that happened last season. What are they now? Like 3-9, I think, in their last 12 games. And I don't think I wouldn't touch that if I were him. I would just let that be. So be careful is all I would say.
For sure. All right, Dave, let's get into what the coordinators had to say. Arthur Smith and Teryl Austin speaking to the media on Thursday, as they always do. We'll start with Teryl Austin. Not a lot to really cover there that was new or super interesting. Was asked about, how much do you trust Nick Herbig in this one, making his first career start with Alex Highsmith down with that groin injury. And Austin says we trust Herbig, trust him as a football player, and he's ready to go for this one.
This is a big game for Nick Herbig, who obviously, the one of the main things I think we keep going back to when we talk about Nick Herbig's brief NFL career to date is, man, when that guy is on the field, because he makes plays. Now he's going to get an opportunity to be on the field for 75-80% of a game, and you're going against a Colts offense that looks good on tape, with their offensive line, with their run game overall, and also you add in the fact that they're probably going to want to stay away from TJ Watt as much as possible. So I would suspect that they're going to try to test just how good of a run defender Nick Herbig is and can be. And although I think Nick Herbig, we've talked about this in throughout his young career so far, is that in most of the instances that he's had to defend against the run, I think he's done a very good job on that. But now you're going to get a large sample size potentially of that, and then on top of it, you've got as another thing that Teryl Austin said, you got an avatar quarterback in Richardson over there. Man, that guy is a load to try to get down to the ground, and there will be rush opportunities. I think some very good ones. I think this matches up good for Nick Herbig overall when it comes to a pass rush situation here. But how does he do on a large volume of runs to his side? Do I trust him going into this game the way Teryl Austin claims that he does? Yes, I do. But the proof will be in the pudding here, because I imagine he's going to get a lot of work to his side in this game and as part of the Colts run attack.
Yeah, that's probably a fair assessment, and that's been a good Colts rushing attack with Jonathan Taylor, and then defending Anthony Richardson in the design quarterback run game, the zone read game. The RPO game is going to be pretty heavy, which, Herbig can only defend so much. The quarterback is reading you, but still trying to work out in space, maybe walk out on a receiver sometimes, and some of those bigger packages that Pittsburgh might be in. We'll have to see how it all shakes out. But I do think when it comes to TJ Watt, I made a video earlier this week, and I compare him to an elite wide receiver in the sense of all the attention that he demands and commands when you talk about chips and slide protection and the whole game plan revolving around how do you stop number 90. If you can't do that, nothing else really matters or wreck your game plan. That creates so many one-on-one matchups on the other end for a guy like Herbig, and sacks last week, which were quality. Kudos to him. He's one-on-one. He's getting just a mono situation against that left tackle and able to win that one. So it's going to be big for Herbig, because that every team's plan is to at least attempt to slow down Watt, and often they do, because if you if you put that much attention on Watt, you will slow him down. There just are some times where you can't double him and trip him every single play, and that's whenever he takes advantage and wins. But what Watt is able to bring is that focus, that intensity of the offensive game plan that allows guys like Herbig to have more favorable matchups.
One of my old man's favorite sayings growing up was, "If the right one don't get you, the left one will."
You've probably been on the receiving end of that a couple of times.
Yeah, I never quite learned it was drilled into my head, but it needed to be drilled into my head, literally. But that's the beauty of this defensive front that we've talked about, is, yeah, I mean, even if you didn't have some of these guys around, TJ Watt, he in and of himself is going to be a handful, but then you surround him with these other guys. I mean, it's a pick your poison type situation. Okay, we're going to highly chip guy like TJ Watt. He's going to get our most attention, and we've seen now almost for 3 games, at least the previews of it, and opposing coaches when they talk. And it's a logical question. What are you going to do? Are you going to have a plan to slow down TJ Watt? And all of them at their core think they do, until they try to actually do it. But even that aside, let's say you're successful at avoiding TJ Watt from making game-wrecking plays during a game. What are you going to do about the rest of those guys in along the front there? And that's what truly makes a good defense elite, and that's what this Steelers defense, at least so far, looks to be. So yeah, that might be your plan, and good luck with giving TJ Watt all the attention. He deserves it there, but you're going to have several opportunities for Larry Ogunjobi, for Keanu Benton, for Cameron Hayward, for look, this. Yeah, you'd like to have Alex Highsmith out there, but at least so far, this hasn't seemed to be a big drop off. Now you can bet that Brian Baldinger and is going to have a film room probably on Nick Herbig right after this game, and I would imagine we're going to have a nice cut up film room on Nick Herbig as well too, because this is you're going to get a lot of opportunities, a lot of plays in this game. But it's easier said than done with giving TJ Watt all the attention, especially with what you got going on with the rest of the front.
Yeah, the big concern whenever you lose a guy like Highsmith is less so about going from Highsmith to Herbig, but then you go from Herbig to, say, DeMarvin Leal as the backup rotational guy. And Leal can play a bit, and he's had a really good summer, and he made this team, he earned his spot, and so you're more comfortable with that than some past iterations of Steelers backups that they've had, going to third, fourth string kind of options. But that's where you might feel it, and you do want to see Herbig have to play 50 snaps in this game, because he's basically never had to do that before. He's been able to come in fresh-legged and be able to work on some probably tired and overwhelmed tackles at that point. Not discrediting what Herbig has done. He's been fantastic, but that has been a benefit. So seeing him play a little tired, a little strained towards the end of a game, I just want to see how that looks. I don't doubt that. I don't think he'll struggle, but I just want to be able to check that box, because it's not something he's really had to do before.
Alex, would you maybe... This is going to make the Roman Wilson people mad. Would you consider dressing Terrell Edmunds in this game, with one of the sole purposes being to lighten the special teams load for Nick Herbig?
I would have to sit down and try to map out some other solutions and possibilities. Yeah. I don't know if it'll have to come to that when you have some versatile guys like Rodney. Go ahead.
I was just going, okay, let's boil it down to this. Would you just try to a more simpler question? Would you try to lighten Nick Herbig's load, however that looks like on special teams in this game?
Yeah, I don't think you can ask him to be a four-face guy in this game, knowing the defensive snaps will play. The other question is, will they elevate a fourth outside linebacker, or will they just go in with 3 of Leal and Herbig and Watt? What happens there is going to be a question.
Forgot all about that. We brought that up the other day, and we forgot to revisit that at the top of the show. That's something else to watch on Saturday.
Yeah, so we'll see if there's going to be multiple elevations. And of course, if there are 2, then you're going to have an extra inactive. And could that then squeeze Roman Wilson? That's a fair point. I wonder, though, about Edmunds, because Austin was asked later about, you lose Corey Trice, will you still have your dime package? And of course, Austin said, I'm not going to tell you what we're going to do. But he said, basically, they're not going to be that impacted. They can still run what they need to run. They really did not run much dime after Trice went down in game. But, do you have Edmunds up for that, or you could do as they did a little bit in this Chargers game that you had Elliott and Casey and Minka be the three safeties. A lot of times Elliott had been coming out of dime packages throughout the first couple weeks. So you could still do that with Elliott and basically becoming that 60B again. Or you could put Edmonds in there. So I want to see how they kind of manage all that.
Who is the key player to watch on defense this week, not named Nick Herbig?
That's a good question. Not named Nick Herbig. I mean, you talk about, not that it's a worry about his play, but Minka Fitzpatrick. I know he's been waiting for that interception for a long time, and we'll talk about Anthony Richardson's very up and down play, the overthrows he's had on tape, the mistakes he's made. He's got 6 interceptions through 3 games. Can Minka go ahead and snag one this week? But maybe beyond that, I think the Colts have some depth at receiver. They're probably the deepest receiver team Pittsburgh has faced so far. When you talk about Michael Pittman and Alec Pierce and A.D. Mitchell, he struggled, but the talent still immense, and Josh Downs getting back. So I think you talk about some of the depth guys in that cornerback room, Beanie Bishop, not that he's depth, but Dante Jackson continue to be tested in this one. Those guys will have to come up large.
All right. What else from Teryl Austin?
That was really it. It was really the dime stuff. He did say on Edmonds that you'll probably see him sooner than later. What that means, does that mean this week? Who knows? But I do want to see how Pittsburgh handles a dime situation, because Trice had been that guy until he got hurt.
All right.
All right, going over to Arthur Smith. And what's the big thing from Arthur Smith that you saw in this one, Dave?
Well, I mean, early on, and we talked about this in his Captain Obvious type statement analysis, if you will, but they've got to get the running game going earlier in games overall, even though they do enjoy the tag on them, it feels like, by Arthur Smith, that they can wear teams down like we've seen a couple times here specifically. Well, I mean, several times so far. They've had opposing defenses just probably ready to get in there and get IVs and get some treatment after the game because of the way they've worn them down. But with Arthur Smith's scheme and being run heavy, obviously they want to come out there more earlier in games and impose their will. And I think that will probably be the onus. One of the things that we see them attempt to do against, as we mentioned with the injury report, this is going to, even if some of these guys on the injury report for the Colts play, they're probably not going to be 100% unit. They're, health wise, and they've had some issues at times stopping the run. So main takeaway here really was kind of in the opening there, saying Arthur Smith saying, got to get the running game going earlier in the game, whatever that looks like. And I think part of that needs to be some designed Justin Fields runs as well too.
Yeah, Fields had talked about he wants to get his legs going a little bit. You made this point a couple of times. We've not really seen Fields run as often as he did in the past, which in some respects is good because he's playing from the pocket more, but you've probably seen fewer design quarterback runs in Pittsburgh than obviously what he had in Chicago.
Yeah, agreed. I just would like to see them not only attempt a few more of those, but have success with those design quarterback runs, because I think it could really loosen up the defense quickly if you're able to accomplish that.
Yeah, and this is a group that, while they played really good run defense against the Bears last week, they are still, I think, ripe for the picking overall in terms of running on and being able to run early without Buckner, with some of the smaller inside linebackers they have, guys like EJ Speed. I think this is a group you certainly should be able to be really physical and win the point of attack. And we'll talk about exactly how to beat them in the run game. I have a different kind of idea than maybe last week's plan, but this is a group overall that you should have success on the ground against.
I agree.
Nothing else huge from Arthur Smith to talk about what Cordero Patterson has brought this team and the versatility. And I thought he told a cool story about, signing Patterson in Atlanta, kind of signed him later in the offseason process. I think it was back in April, but I guess that was kind of more second wave of free agency. And just Patterson's versatility would help them out in Atlanta at times where they lost receivers and guys got hurt and needed guys like Patterson to wear a lot of different hats. And so it's kind of funny to see that carry over in Pittsburgh last week. Once they only dress 4 receivers, Van Jefferson gets poked in the eye, misses most of the game. Patterson comes in and wears a bunch of hats and is the running back to help close out that win on that final drive. And so it's kind of been the same story between Arthur Smith and Cordero Patterson.
Yeah, and you can count on Cordell Patterson getting some snaps in this game, especially if Jaylen Warren does not end up playing. And even if Jaylen Warren does suit up, you're still going to see some designed ways to get Cordell Patterson the football in this game. Probably see him a little bit more potentially lined up wide as well too. Uh, yeah, he's a Swiss Army knife type of guy, and I keep going back to way back when he was younger, thinking, man, this guy couldn't spell cat if you spotted him the C and the A in there, and boy, has he proven me wrong. And he can do everything that you need him to do within an offensive structure, especially one that Arthur Smith run. So it will. I think there are opportunities for him to have some impactful touches in this game against the Colts.
Me too. All right, Dave, any other Steelers news? I have something written in my notes and I cannot read my handwriting. Surprise, surprise. So I don't know if I'm missing something big here, but any other Steelers happenings this week we should get to?
Trying to think. I think it's just been standard fare out of the opposing side. So I don't know what you may have wrote down that you can't read there.
Anything from the players from Pittsburgh side this week? No Russell Wilson speaking this week.
Yeah.
Really kind of maybe tells you what you need to know about the quarterback situation right now.
I just this kind of tags on to my overall observation coming out of that Chargers game about Justin Fields and just his demeanor on the field. And I just feel like it's carried over and it's not unexpected overall, but he had a great interview on the Cameron Hayward podcast and had his media session on Thursday. And just, we talked a lot during the offseason about Russell Wilson coming in and just him saying and doing all the right things, at least from where we sit in mom's basements here. I don't think that we've focused enough of our energies on how Justin Fields has carried himself throughout this process. Once again, not that it wasn't unexpected. We just have not given it probably the flowers to it that we did, heading into the season under the assumption that Russell Wilson was going to be a starter. This is a tough situation for Justin Fields to be in because of the way that the team and Mike Tomlin is going about the business with keeping Russell technically the QB1 on this thing. And I just think Justin Fields has done a great job of handling all the questions of, in so many words, do you think that you should be QB1 or are you concerned about what happens after this? And he's more of a look, you're not promised tomorrow. This is a game by game basis, in the NFL, and he understands that. I just think my overall takeaway, once again, coming out of the game on last Sunday against the Chargers to this week, is they've got a very strong quarterback room there with how these guys are handling this, and Justin Fields specifically. And once again, if you haven't seen the Cam Hayward podcast this week, go watch it. It's a lot of great stories in there, and just to watch how Justin Fields just has that even kill demeanor. And then even into the interview with the media on Thursday, just you're very impressed with him, especially still being a relatively young player in the NFL. So that's it. That's the take.
My favorite answer he gave in that media scrum yesterday was he was asked about taking care of the football. He's been really clean this year, but he then circled it back to the interception he threw and said he was still sick over that pick. And so this is a guy that takes these things personally. This is not a guy that throws a pick and goes, it's going to happen. I mean, it might have been maybe, I don't want to say that was the perception in Chicago, but he was known as this turnover prone guy. And maybe people thought that was just kind of the way he played and just no risk it, no biscuit. No, I mean, he really wants to do everything he can to make sure he's not hurting this team and to still kind of be smarting and mad about that pick despite this team winning and him playing his best game of the season against the Chargers and beating an undefeated team, which is no easy feat there, being 3-0. For him to kind of still be talking about that one and know that it's probably he's still thinking about that play just kind of speaks to this is a guy that wants to be perfect and be the best and does not want to have any error at all. And so I appreciate that attitude. And I thought that was a really thoughtful answer he gave.
I agree. I think he's handled himself really well. Really impressed with him.
All right, Dave, with that, let's take a pause and get to our weekly guest interview with an opposing beat writer. And this week, that man is Nate Atkins, who writes for the Indy Star. Be sure to follow him and all his great work over there. Follow him on Twitter at Nate Atkins _. Don't forget the underscore at the end of his name. We'll take a pause and come back with Nate.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. It is Friday. It is week 4 of the NFL 2024 regular season. The Pittsburgh Steelers will go on the road on Sunday and play the Indianapolis Colts, who are fresh off of a win against the Chicago Bears last weekend. And back with us once again, you heard him last season on the Terrible Podcast ahead of the Steelers playing the Colts. We're pleased to have Nate Atkins back again. Nate covers the Colts for the Indianapolis Star. You can follow Nate on Twitter /X at Nate Atkins, ATKINS _. You should already be doing so after last year. If not, make sure you correct that and get to the IndyStar.com website and read all of his articles that he has ahead of the game on Sunday against the Colts. Nate, welcome back to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex. Happy Friday.
Thanks for having me. I guess this is like an annual tradition at this point. 8 years since I took this job. The Colts and Steelers have played in the regular season. They've all been here at Lucas Oil. So I hope some year I get to head out to Pittsburgh and check out that stadium. I actually never been to Pittsburgh till this past summer. So love to check it out for a game sometime.
Yeah, you never know how the rotating schedule will work, and then obviously, with the every 4-year cycle and all. So hopefully you'll get that accomplished here. All right, Nate. Here we go. Week 4, Steelers playing the Colts. Looking at what are your overarching thoughts on this Colts team heading into week 4? Obviously, Anthony Richardson back healthy after missing a lot of time last year with that injury. So far, the Colts have played, they played Stroud, second-year quarterback. They got, I think, Jordan Love in that second game against the Packers, and then Caleb Williams, the rookie quarterback here last week. So what have you learned so far about this 2024 Colts team heading into week 4?
Yeah, this is one of the more unique teams that you're going to see, at least on offense, because they are the very definition of boom or bust, where this is a team that leads the NFL in completions over 40 yards. They're second in the NFL, only behind the Packers in explosive plays. They're third in the NFL in yards per play. And yet it hasn't really felt that way in terms of the production, the overall picture and production, because they also turn the ball over. They lead the league in interceptions. They rank right around middle of the pack in total yards. And you just don't kind of know what you're going to get really drive to drive, sometimes play to play with the way this team works. They're dead last in time of possession. So some of that points to how quickly they can score when they can go 60 yards in one play. But it also shows you how much they struggle to stay on the field if they're not getting those big plays. They've been hunting a lot for big time passes in the passing game, which is how they lead the league in yards per completion, but they're only completing 49% of those passes and also lead the league in picks. So it's a lot of taking chances, and sometimes they pay off and sometimes they go really poorly. I'd say the last week is when they finally really leaned into Jonathan Taylor, which is here. They signed him last year to be that steadying force, that guy who keeps them on the field and extends the drives and takes the pressure off of Anthony Richardson. So I'm curious to see if they're going to lean more into him, because they just have been hesitant to do it, because I think they're so in love with hunting for some of these explosive passes, and he's not really a passing down type of player. So on offense, they're explosive team, but they're also they need to learn to be more methodical. So leaning into Jonathan Taylor, And then they just got Josh Downs back in the slot. I think that can be a step there, but that's the challenge they have to find. And then on defense, it was a really, really brutal start to the year where they allowed more rushing yards than any team in 46 years through the first 2 games. And then really flipped that last week against the Bears, who are not good at running the ball. But, we did see some major strides there. So they're really, really banged up on that side of the ball with DeForest Buckner on injured reserve and a lot of other guys dealing with some issues right now. So they're kind of built all around a pass rush that's a little banged up, but also showed last week against the Bears it can go out and win you a game still. So overall, this is a pretty young team, but the guys that are available right now who are healthy to play, it's a youngest starting quarterback in the NFL. So it makes them a little harder to predict game to game because they have that explosiveness to them in the pass rush on defense and in the passing game and the run game on offense. But there's a lot of inconsistency in there too. So this will be a really good test this week when they go up against a good team to see kind of where they're at on a lot of these things. Have they tweaked the formula? Can they stay on the field? Because we know the Steelers can stay on the field. So this week I think is going to test a lot of the flaws that they have, but also give them a chance to prove some things too.
Nate, you talk about inconsistencies and going back through the tape with Richardson. Obviously, the super low completion percentage, but you're right. It has been feast or famine when he can still wing it down the field. We've seen some long completions on tape, but in other throws, seems to be high or off the mark on and that's played into the end with the lower completion percentage. We've seen a couple of drops, I think, even by some of the eligibles. Can you put your finger on? Is there anything different? To me, there was a lot of kind of lackadaisical throws, at least downfield by Richardson, where he kind of figures, well, Alec Pierce is down there somewhere. It just kind of seems feast and famine in that. Can you put your finger on why his completion percentage is what it is right now?
Well, the interesting thing is in college, he only started 13 games at Florida, but he completed 54.8% of his passes. And so far in the NFL, he's only started 7 games, but it's at 54.7. So it's really interesting how it mirrors from college to the NFL. Some of the reasons are a little different because the talent around him is better, but maybe it hasn't always performed that way yet. But really it comes down to, like you said, lackadaisical. That was the word that he used, but it's less about it's not so much that he's chucking it into deeply covered players. Some of these players are very much open. And the problem is that he gets so excited when he sees the play that they've worked on all week break wide open like that. And at the last second, when he's in the offensive line has done a really good job of giving him open pockets. But the problem is he ends up leaving his feet unnecessarily, just almost out of excitement, or that's often the way he can power his longest throws. But when he does that without a purpose to it, the ball will sail. And that's a lot of his misses down the field. It's not that he doesn't get it there. It's the opposite. It's like he throws it too far. And right now when teams are sitting in these too high shells that are happening all across the NFL, but especially with this team, given how far he can throw it down the field, those overthrows are not just incompletions. They're going over the receiver's head and into the arms of the safety. So that's how a player like this ends up leading the league in interceptions so far. So this is the first week that they've gotten really, really, I guess, intentional about fixing it. The first couple games, I think because he was coming off shoulder surgery and had barely played, they kind of wanted to see more from him to understand, is this an ongoing accuracy issue? Or is this, is it just a couple of isolated throws? And there were some drops in there that you mentioned too. But last week brought out more of the mechanical issues in him missing high and, just launching throws that he doesn't need to. And then he also has moments where he overcorrects because he sees these on the sideline. He looks at the tape. He sees that flaw where he's adding unnecessary power. So then you'll see some plays where he's trying to aim the ball and the launch angle is still the same, but there's so much air on it that of a player who goes from open all of a sudden isn't open anymore and the defender can make the play. So this week they're trying to just, it's going to take some time to drill in the mechanics and the muscle memory to play in that way that's not excited. I think the more he plays, the more he'll settle down. Some of it is seeing these plays come open a little earlier, so it's like he's less caught by surprise in that moment. And then they just have to coach around it a little bit, because there are going to be some accuracy issues when he has this profile coming from college, and we've just seen in the NFL players like that. They can improve accuracy, but it takes time. Whether that's Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts, it isn't a thing that gets corrected 1 week to the next, or even in one season. So there is an element of him that's not going to be the most accurate and consistent passer right now. What they hope, though, is they can take away some of those overthrows on interceptions. And if they can use more of what he does best outside of the explosive throws, like his rushing, and get him into a little bit of a rhythm with Josh Downs, who just got back. There's just small little areas where they can improve and limit some of the reckless plays. If they do that, then some of those big time completions that lead the NFL right now, those will stand out a little bit better. So it's a young passer who's going to go through a lot of growing pains. They just have to find a way to kind of package it so he's in a little better situation, and so that he's not turning the ball over when he's doing this.
Nate, I think about last year's matchup and the walking wounded Pittsburgh Steelers of 2023 in that game when the Colts ran all over Pittsburgh in the second half of that one. But I know that the Colts have guys in this game who didn't play last year, including Richardson and Jonathan Taylor. How much has the scheme changed with those guys back, or is it basically the same scheme under Shane Steichen, which seems to be very, RPO heavy and just more, hopefully more talent to be better equipped to score? Is the scheme different than what Pittsburgh saw last year?
It is a little bit, because the quarterback is quite a bit different. Gardner Minshew is an experienced quarterback, but also, not a mobile quarterback. And he was a guy that really worked early in the downs, precision passing. So the RPO setup was pretty ideal for him. But they want to insulate that with, they wouldn't want to put too much on him. So they wanted to run the ball a ton with their running backs. This version of the Colts is throwing the ball more. Again, some of it's been because they're down, but they know they can hunt for explosive plays. Richardson has a much stronger arm than Minshew, and much stronger than most quarterbacks. Mm-hmm. But they also lose some of they know they don't have the precision. They can't just dial up a 3rd and 5 slant pass or 3rd and 5 RPO and feel really, really confident that it's going to get there. So they are living more in this herky-jerky mode of going for the explosive plays and flying down the field. So like a guy like Alec Pierce, one of their starting wide receivers, he's leading the NFL in yards per catch. Because they've unlocked that as he's gotten deep. They didn't have that in their bag last year. Gardner couldn't get it that far downfield often, or didn't want to attempt it. So they're much more of a team that throws down the field a lot more. And because they want to get in that mode and they're running fewer plays, they just aren't leaning on the run game as much. So that's something that a lot of people talked about, how they need to get back to that. Because like you pointed out, they have Jonathan Taylor back. So they have better running backs than they did at this time a year ago when they leaned into it, and it kind of worked. So this week, I think, is a big test for whether they can settle down and avoid chasing those explosives all the time. When they can run the ball, they have Jonathan Taylor. He's coming off 2 straight 100-yard games, and that can be a way to play to the strengths of their offensive line, and also, neutralize TJ Watt and some of the Steelers pass rush that otherwise, you don't want a young quarterback dealing with.
I think settle down is a great phrase to use for the Colts right now. And speaking of that pass rush, Pittsburgh will be starting Nick Herbig at right outside linebacker this week with Alex Highsmith out. I know all the attention goes to TJ Watt, but I want to focus in on that matchup. How has left tackle Bernhard Raimann done so far in his career? I always want to catch myself and remind myself it's not Costanzo at left tackle anymore. He was there for such a long time. But how has Raimann done? Because I really want to see that matchup with Nick Herbig, because those guys are going to be one-on-one quite a bit in this game.
Yeah, these Steelers games have been an interesting way to track Raimann's progress, because 2 years ago when he was a rookie, he was thrown in. He was a 3rd-round pick out of Central Michigan, but he had a path from Austria to the U.S. and was so raw. And that's when the Steelers were playing TJ Watt over on that side to expose it. And he just kind of got his lunch money stolen that game. Last year, you saw a lot better version of him once he was able to add like 15 pounds in the offseason. Really, he really settled down, just getting to play more and play next to Quentin Nelson. And he's since grown into a pretty solid left tackle. I wouldn't say that he's a star. He can get beaten occasionally, around the edge, even by some power rushers here and there. But for the most part, it's not something you worry about. It's not a high number of pressures, and he just kind of fits well in the run game. He's still trying to build in the run game a little bit, but playing next to Quentin Nelson is just such a huge advantage for a left tackle. And when they get a really tough matchup in the pass rush, Quentin Nelson's been helpful for him there too. So I would say Bernhard Raimann I'd say he's above average as a left tackle. So he's not going to dominate out there, but he isn't a guy that we really talk about a lot right now, which is what they hope to get to. Is that they had, after Costanza retired after 2020, they went through a couple different left tackles the next 2 years that really kind of wrecked their seasons by the end of it. So they got out of that. They have a left tackle now that they feel good enough that they can play with, and that's what he's shown the past like year and a half to 2 years or so.
Obviously, going into any game against TJ Watt, the Steelers, you'll hear opposing coaches and players say, "Yeah, we think we have a plan for him and all." What should be the Colts' plan when it comes to slowing down TJ Watt this week?
Well, the biggest part of that plan was getting their right tackle back. Braden Smith had missed practice on Wednesday, and that you get a little nervous about that because he's the right tackle, and that's where TJ Watt will often play. He missed with a knee injury, but he came back, practice full on Thursday, so it seems like that was more of a rest type maintenance thing. So that's going to be the biggest thing they can do. They have tight ends where there's only 3 of them, and 2 of them are blockers. So I'm sure that will be a big focus for them. Usually when they've faced one of these big time pass rushers, they just kind of turn that tight end into an extra tackle. So I think Mo Alley Cox, he's going to play a lot and probably play a lot on that right side to be able to handle him. But the other thing that they've got to do that they got to last year against the Steelers was they've got to win on the ground so that they are playing, they're making TJ Watt be more of a run defender. They're taking a little bit of juice out of him when he does, get those moments to rush the passer or introduce play action where there's just something to work against that pass rusher. So, and then, TJ's going to have his wins because he always does. So they know that. And Braden Smith, well, he's a very solid right tackle. He's not a superstar. So they expect TJ to get in the backfield and be a problem at times. And that's where Anthony Richardson, his mobility helps him. His pocket movement's really good about getting away from sacks. And actually, the weird thing is I think he's actually better as a thrower when he's under pressure because some of those movements in his lower body, they become intentional and purposeful and necessary to survive and fitting the throw and throwing on the run rather than just introducing that in a clean pocket. But obviously it's different when they face a guy like TJ Watt, who unlike other rushers, he has the speed to catch up to and the speed and length to catch Richardson better than a lot of the rushers that they face. So it's definitely priority number 1 is figuring out where, always having a plan for him with those tight ends, trusting Braden Smith and having Anthony Richardson, very aware of him, at least is on the front side when he drops back, is just constantly watching for where TJ is and making sure in any way possible that you don't let him wreck the game.
Before I turn it over to Alex for a couple of defensive questions here, you look at the injury report. You already mentioned DeForest Buckner's been lost now for a couple of weeks now. He's obviously not going to play. They've lost Juju Brents, Samson Ibukon to injury reserve as well too. How I know we're recording this Friday before practice and the final injury report comes out, but Kwity Paye and the veteran Kenny Moore with a hip, Taekwon Lewis, Chris Lamons are the 4 guys that look like that need to be watched ahead of Friday practice. How do you feel that might shake out?
Yeah, that's going to be a big question today because, I assume when you don't see players on Wednesday or Thursday, and especially for these players, they've barely even been around Kenny Moore and Kwity Paye, it becomes less likely that they'll play. But this is the spot they were in last week. Latu missed the first 2 days, came back for Friday, played and ended up winning the game for them with a strip sack. So we do have to get there to see, but it did seem like potentially bigger injuries than 1 week for Kenny Moore and Kwity Paye when they happened late in last week's game. So those two I'm doubtful for. Taekwon Lewis is kind of the other co-starter with Laiatu Latu at defensive end. That was a new injury we didn't know anything about until yesterday, so have to gather some more info. Obviously, they're hoping that's just a minor, that's a maintenance day for another veteran. But they need them because Kwity Paye and Taekwon Lewis are currently their two starters at base end, and like you mentioned, Samson Ebukam is out for the year, so that one's tough. And some of the other ones, I guess Chris Lamons is the other one. He's the backup to Kenny Moore. So obviously, if you end up missing both of those, that's a big problem. But you would like to think the odds are that one of them finds a way to play in this game. But they are getting a little thin in the secondary because with Juju Brents out for the year, they moved Samuel Womack, who is another nickel option. They moved him to the outside to split reps there. So they don't have as many guys to use in the nickel that they used to. And they're just losing some of the veterans that they've been counting on. So they know they're going to be hamstrung a little bit anyway without DeForest Buckner, and they've been without Ebukam and Juju Brents. But this will be a big day to see, can they get back, especially those defensive ends and at least one of the nickels. They're going to need, I think, 2 of those 4 players to feel like they can hold up on defense.
I know there's no easy way to replace him, but how has the team tried to replace DeForest Buckner? I know Tavon Bryan's gotten some more playing time. They did do, as you said, a great job shutting down that Bears rushing attack last week. So what has been their plan of attack to replace Buckner?
So far, they're playing basically because the run defense became such an issue they had to solve, and then Buckner got hurt. They've started to play more 2 nose tackles in those defensive tackle spots. Mm-hmm. Grover Stewart's always the nose tackle, but Raekwon Davis was one guy they went out and spent a little bit of money on in free agency to be a backup. Well, now they're playing him and just really trying to make it hard to run up the middle on team. So that's kind of what they'll do. I think on base downs, Taven Bryan will play some of that role for DeForest Buckner as well. He is not nearly as good of a run defender, former first round pick out of Florida, now kind of a rotational body. He can survive when he's at 3 technique. He's more of a guy that they hope teams will drop back to pass, and he can help out a little bit there. And then in the very obvious passing situations, when it gets to 3rd and 6 or longer, you should see Dio Dangbo in there. He's their former 2nd round pick, broke out last year with 8 sacks, and he's really, really good at rushing inside when they can get in those situations where it's just playing downhill and playing without having to worry about the rush. The curious thing this week is what happens at defensive end, because Dio Adengbo is also, he plays a lot of defensive end, and he may have to play more if Kwity Paye can't play, right. Taekwon Lewis can't play. If that happens, that's where you'll see Taven Bryan in there mostly. But I think based on the success they found against the Bears in the run defense, I still expect them to play Grover Stewart and Raekwon Davis in the middle, just have those 2 nose tackles and more or less threaten, beg the Steelers to throw on them and deal with their pass rush and not let them just kind of run all over them up the middle the way that some other teams have.
Is it fair to say that the strength of the defense is at linebacker with Zaire Franklin and EJ Speed, and those guys never come off the field, even in some of those obvious pass situations? There's always seemingly 2 inside linebackers, off-ball linebackers on the field. Is that because their talent is so good, or because the secondary injuries kind of limiting maybe some dime packages for the Colts to employ?
The defense schematically is very much built around the linebackers because Gus Bradley was a former linebackers coach. That's how he built the Seahawks defense when they were at their peak. So that's sort of the idea. Is Zaire Franklin 2 straight years has broken the franchise tackles record, and EJ Speed kind of broke out last year. And they've always found these guys, late round picks, they develop into really good linebackers. What's been interesting is the first 2 weeks, those 2 really did not play well. I was among the 2 worst games I've ever seen from them. Some of it was, some issues going on up front where they were facing more guys in their face than before. And I just don't think they had focused as much on the run defense as they needed to, because they're trying to help in secondary. So last week they really got after it. I thought that was just a tremendous game that Zaire Franklin played, and EJ Speed was a lot better. So that's their hope, is if they can keep some of. That's why I think they're going to play those nose tackles up front, is they realize if they can keep these offensive linemen from climbing to those linebackers, if they let them just kind of read the run plays and go make the tackle, that's when they're at their best. So I think they're in a better space if they can do that this week. But the defense overall, I think the biggest strength that they have is ultimately in the pass rush. We'll see if it can be that strength this week with some of those injuries going on. But like Laiatu Latu last week just kind of wrecked every time that the Bears wanted to drop back in obvious pass situations. He's the top defender taken in this year's draft. Finally had his kind of big breakthrough moment with the strip sack of Caleb Williams. Obviously, with no DeForest Buckner, it's not as strong in the middle, and that's where Kwity Paye, they really, really could use him, because he's been a very solid number 2 type rusher. But I think Tyquan Lewis, if he can play, he's been a solid pressure guy, and then Dio Dengbo is a great rusher inside. So they really tried to build this defense to be, while the linebackers are kind of the key to the scheme, the pass rushes they're the upside of the defense. They're the guys who have to make all the superstar plays, because their secondary is so young right now, and a little compromised by injury too. So that's what makes it hard to forecast this game till we see practice today, is seeing how much of that pass rush is out there. Last week they were a little banged up, but they found a way to still overwhelm a pretty bad Bears offensive line. This week, it's a harder test, and also but they need to be the guys that can help them win it, just given some of the other injuries that we talked about.
Hey, quick follow-up. I've always wanted to ask a Colts guy, what is Chris Ballard's kind of, I don't want to say obsession, but he loves the small school guys like EJ Speed from Tarleton State. Is that a personal thing where he just thinks there's a market inefficiency where I know that scouting is so prolific and everyone knows everybody, but it feels like he loves those day 3, D2 type of gems. Is that just happenstance, coincidence, or is there a philosophy behind that?
Oh yeah, I think that's his favorite part of the entire job, is finding those A3 gems, those guys that slip under the radar that maybe he had no idea about. Often it's guys he wants to change their position, sees something different in them. So a lot of that's what he does this time of year when the between game weeks or game days, is just grinding on college film and trying to find those. Some of it is, they had a great system for a number of years with Bubba Ventrone, where they would have a special teams role for these guys day one before they figured out who they were on defense. And those guys then it would end up elevating to become defensive players. So Kenny Moore and EJ Speed have both come from those paths of tiny schools. You may never have heard of Tarleton State or Valdosta State, but they started on special teams, earned a role in the team there, and then built up, and now they're pretty big time players on the defense. So that's definitely Chris Ballard's wheelhouse. Sometimes it's he values that more than maybe going after big names and high upside players, but it's definitely something that he loves to do, and he's a good track record of doing.
Even though we're seeing more of a 2 safety world in the NFL these days, you still have teams like the Carolina Panthers and the Steelers playing a lot of cover 3 so far through the first 3 weeks of the season. I think even the Colts are up there well within the top 10 and playing like 41% cover 3, with some cover 2, I think, being their next highest percentage of coverage goes. Injuries obviously could play a role in that with what the Colts have had happen here, but it seems like, at least on tape, that they're daring teams to try to beat them down the field outside of the numbers per se in those coverages. They're daring them to take the one-on-one matchups down the field outside the numbers, whether it be a honey hole shot versus cover 2 or just a straight one-on-one, maybe against a corner, either off or on. Do you expect that to continue with the Colts this week, with a loaded box kind of in front of it, and just sort of try to keep a lid on this thing while trying to shut down the run at the same time, and then just tackle the catch in other situations? Is that what you're looking? Is that how the Steelers need to try to attack them down the field?
I think you'll see a good amount of that, because they last week, when they really became focused on fixing the run defense, they realized they need to involve the safeties more earlier in the play. So they had a free safety who was leading the NFL in tackles heading into last week, but it wasn't, he was catching guys in the back end in that single high safety spot. That's Nick Cross. So they've started to bring him, they pulled him down more into the box because he's a really physical player. Turns out he's a really good tackler. So that helped them last week, but it did expose some things along the sidelines, especially. They decided to run more man coverage than they normally do, just to not lose people, lose assignments when they're moving these defenders around for the run defense. So they were willing to live with last week with guys like Roma Dunze and DJ Moore and Cole Kmet making some chunk plays. They threw for almost 350 yards, but the idea was that if they take away the run, if they force Caleb Williams to drop back 50 times, that their pass rush eventually is going to wreck them. And it worked. Laiatu Latu eventually got to Caleb Williams, strip sack, and the game. That was 1 of 4 sacks. But there are plays out there to be made when they do that. This week, I don't know if it'll be quite the same. They may have the same approach. I think a lot of it last week was just about they did not think the Bears tackles could handle their edge rushers at all. So it was all about whatever we can do to almost bait them into taking these throws. Eventually, we'll get our explosive gains to negate anything that they're doing. So I think so they ended up using more man coverage last week than I would have normally expected, but it was still man coverage with pulling that safety down and having a single high safety out there, often a Julian Blackmon. So I assume, as much as they talked about how they don't think that one game has just solved all the run defense, they have to still throw stuff at it. We know the Steelers run the ball quite a bit, or they at least should, especially when they look at kind of how the Packers ran on the Colts with a mobile quarterback and Malik Willis. That was a hard thing for them. So I got to think that Arthur Smith looks at this with Justin Fields and thinks to use some of that in there. So I think they're at least going to expect that the Steelers are going to run really heavy on them. And they know that they'll expose them with guys like George Pickens, along the sidelines, but the safeties they do have are really elite tacklers. So the idea is that when that does happen, they can give up some plays along the sidelines, but still kind of limit those from being, too big of gains, make the offense run more plays so they can ideally get their pass rush going and get them out there. So I think that's mostly what you'll see, though, is a stacked box and them expecting a heavy run game from the Steelers.
All right, Nate, we're wrapping up 30 minutes with you here. 1.5 Steelers favorite on the road here. Steelers went into that game last year. A lot of us thinking that they would and should have won that game. They obviously didn't. How do you see this one going? And if you wouldn't mind throwing out maybe a final score prediction for us.
I think that line of 1.5 for the Steelers is very fair. Obviously, they're the 3-0 team. The Colts are the ones who have to prove that their run defense is real, that they can stay on the field on offense, that they can't turn it over. But we also see the upside the Colts have when they do connect on offense. It makes it really hard to predict because it's one of those games where I expect the Steelers on defense to win or dominate most of the plays against the Colts. The problem is the Colts, when they do have their wins on offense, those plays tend to all be explosive plays. So I think it's going to be a super tight game as of right now. Just given until I can get out there to practice and see guys actually come back. With the guys that are currently out, there's a chance that the Colts are without 5 of their top 7 defensive players coming into the year. So I just think that's a little bit hard of a situation for them to deal with right now with against a scheme that Arthur Smith has run really well on them when he was with the Titans with Derrick Henry, last year with the Falcons that really ate them up with Bijan Robinson. I know the Steelers have not gotten the run game going to that level yet, but I think this will be a week that they get it going a little bit more. That'll introduce some play action and let them go after some of these holes in the secondary. So it's going to be one of those games where I expect the Colts again they'll hit their explosive plays because they seem to find a few of those every game. I think Jonathan Taylor will be a big help to them, but I think they're a little compromised on defense. So as of right now, I'll go with the Steelers pulling out a really close win. Maybe like something like 20-17.
All right. And what's the first thing our listeners should look for? What's the first story they should go to when they go to the IndyStar.com to read your work?
Well, the latest one that I have out there is really diving into Anthony Richardson's accuracy issues and how they're on a mission to try and fix those. So that's the one that just came out today. So that's looking at this kind of how they fix it now, how they fix it for the long term, and what they can ultimately try to do this week to get him sped up in the right direction.
All right, folks, you can make sure you are following Nate on Twitter/X at Nate Atkins _. We'll have that link in the post on SteelersDepot.com to make him easy to find, along with a link to his work at IndyStar.com. Nate, we appreciate you taking a half hour with us today. Ran you a little bit long, but we appreciate your time, appreciate your knowledge, and enjoy the game. And thanks for being on the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex again.
Yep. Thanks, guys, for having me. Enjoy the game on Sunday.
And welcome back to the Terrible Podcast. Again, our special thanks to Nate Atkins for making some time this Friday to speak with us. Again, read his work over at the Indy Star and follow him on Twitter at Nate Atkins _. Appreciate his time. If you guys could shout him out on Twitter and thank him for joining us, we always appreciate that, Dave.
Absolutely, and so thankful to be able to call on him once again. And we normally go into these things, and try to let these guys know that we'll spend like 18 to 22 minutes with them. This one ran 31 minutes, so we're taking time out of their busy morning, and we certainly do appreciate it. So if you get a chance, shout Nate out on Twitter/X, if you will.
All right, Dave, let's you and I preview the Steelers-Colts game Sunday, 1 o'clock, Pittsburgh on the road. They are 3-0, the Colts 1-2, getting their first victory of the season last week against the Chicago Bears. We'll start with this Colts offense, and I know we talked about the matchup last year, the Colts running all over Pittsburgh, especially in that second half. They scored 30 unanswered, miserable game for the Steelers in that 3-game losing streak. Of course, Pittsburgh's defense, and really team in general, much different looking this year compared to last year's meeting, but the Colts have new faces that they did not play against Pittsburgh last year, and Jonathan Taylor and Anthony Richardson. Even right tackle Braden Smith will play in this game, at least we think will play in this game, who did not suit up last year. So when you look at this Colts offense, you asked some great questions. I thought Nate had some really good answers about Anthony Richardson. It's been a weird start to him. He's got some big plays, some highlight reel plays, but some ugly other numbers as well, as sub 50% completion percentage, more really double the interceptions to touchdowns. What do you make of him? What do you make of this Colts offense?
I tell you, the first two games that I watched them in reverse. The most recent one against the Bears, and then the Packers, and then last night dove deeper into the first game against the Texans. Thought his first game against the Texans was clearly the better of the three, albeit still not great. When you look specifically at the games against the Bears and the Packers, you see a lot, and I mentioned this to Nate. It seemed a lot of lackadaisical, like he was just out in the front yard playing ball with the guys and all. A lot of these throws. A lot of ill-advised throws, I thought, in there. It's almost like somebody's down there on the other end. Let's see if I can. Now, look, he's got the arm strength. Nobody's going to disagree with that. That guy can chuck the football, and they are kind of, as Nate said, or they have been a feast or famine team down the field there. If they were able to reel in his accuracy, one, and then two, reel in some of the decision making that he makes when he is trying to push the football down the field, that would really go a long ways, I think, in keeping their offense on the field overall. The other thing that stuck out with him, though, is there were some opportunities for opposing defenses to sack him, and he's just so big and so strong, such a hard guy to get down. That's going to potentially pose a challenge with him. And then there's the mobility aspect of them with what they try to do with the read option and things with him overall. You've got to be wary of him taking off with the football. They use a lot of motion, a lot of orbit motion, a lot of kind of misdirection. As you mentioned, they use the RPO as part of this. He is a hard guy. he becomes an even harder guy to defend, I would imagine, the more accurate that he is and the better decisions that he makes with the football there. So a talented guy that still hasn't learned all aspects of managing his own game within side of an NFL offense.
Yeah, that sums it up well. It's been really up and down. This is only, though, I think forget the stat, his 21st career start dating back to 2020 at Florida. And so we're talking a guy with like 8 career NFL starts, had that shoulder injury a couple games into last year, and was a 1-year starter with the Gators. And so this is still a really young guy overall in terms of his literal age. I think he's like 22, and in terms of his football experience. And so it's no surprise to see some of that up-down play. But, while there's a lot of negatives there, as you said, all it takes is that one big play. He's hit 60-yard throws, to Alec Pierce, and they've gotten, I think he's last in completion percentage and he's first in yards per completion, which kind of just sums up where his game is at overall. It's very high, very low, but whenever it's high, it's high. And in terms of run game aspect, defending him, the most mobile quarterback Pittsburgh has faced already this season. They're a team that generally does better against more of those pocket passer statue guys than they have against more of the mobile types. And so defending that in terms of zone reads and quarterback power on the goal line, the way the teams have to struggle to account for Justin Fields, Pittsburgh will have to account for Anthony Richardson in the run game.
I don't think going into this game, the more that they can lean on their running game, I don't think you want him back there dropping back and throwing 40-something times a game because he's likely to give you a couple of gift opportunities. And here's the thing that sits in my head. There are, regardless of how many times he does throw in this game, there's going to probably be 2 or 3 throws from him that give you an opportunity to make a defensive play on him. You better not miss those. If he gives you a gift, you better take it. Because on the flip side, he's probably going to complete 1 or 2 throws on down the field, and those can be in the 50 to 60-yard variety, and those very well could end up in the end zone on top of it. So I think a key to this game is in the chances that he gives you to make plays to take the football away in the secondary. You better accept those gifts.
And that's where a guy like Minkah Fitzpatrick comes in. I talked about earlier, where teams have it's been maybe a quiet year for Minkah, but it's not his fault. Quarterbacks have just not dared to throw anywhere. I mean, how often has teams thrown in the middle of the field against Pittsburgh this year? Basically, not at all. It's been some sideline stuff, and they've not had much success overall. They had the one trick play against Denver, and they got Minkah out of position. It was a good play, but it needed like a wildcat or leaf flicker kind of trick play to make that one work. Richardson's going to take some shots, no matter Minkah's down there or not. And so I think that matchup will be between Richardson and Minkah when the ball's in the air. Who's going to make a play?
Look, everybody that likes talking and watching quarterbacks in a game throw to the middle of the field more than 10 yards down the field, probably not going to enjoy this one. It would be unwise, at least with the way the MO that the Steelers defense has so far, for Richardson to take a lot of shots between the hash marks, or not between the numbers, really. This game, I think, by both offenses will be won outside the numbers when it comes to the passing game. Now, what sticks out to me about the Colts running game is, man, that offensive line is good. It is very good, very powerful. They'll put their linemen on the move, pulling them. They'll run some misdirection stuff off of that heavy RPO game. But boy, you don't. This kind of rolls back when defending, and I talked about this the other day. This sets up for an opportunity for Patrick Queen to have a big game. The defensive linemen up front have got to try to keep him as clean as possible, because you get Quentin Nelson or some of these big bodies of theirs out to the second level, and Jonathan Taylor's been fantastic so far. He can get to the edge and beat you on the edge. He can run in between the tackles. He is very much an all-purpose running back. Now, the good thing is the Steelers, coming off of a game where they knew they had to shut down the run against Dobbins and company, against the Chargers. They've got their hands full when it comes to this. And I would imagine the Colts want to come out just like the Steelers want to do and establish the run. But how you defend that run, especially with a couple of new pieces in there playing more snaps and Herbig and Leal, and then they run a lot of 11 personnel on that side of the football. The Colts do as well too, to kind of stretch you out. So I imagine going to be a lot of situations where Queen's out there, in sub package situations. The play of Patrick Queen might be under the microscope, good or bad, coming out of this one.
Yeah, I think so. It's going to have to play team run defense again, just as they did and did really well against the Chargers. The secondary is going to have to tackle. That Beanie Bishop fitting the run and tackles the corners on the outside making tackles the way that Dante Jackson, Joey Porter Jr. did. Taylor's a different guy to tackle than Dobbins. Dobbins is tough, but he's not nearly as thickly built and physical and powerful like Taylor. And so you're going to have to really work hard to bring that guy down. You're going to have to rally and get multiple hats. You can't assume that one guy's going to make the open field stop, because Taylor's going to start, be able to fall forward and try to run out of some of these arm tackles. So that's going to be something to watch for. They don't throw to the tight end. Their tight ends have 4 receptions on the season, and so they are a receiver heavy group, but they got some talent there at receiver. They are RPO heavy, 3rd in the NFL in RPOs, and so defending that on early downs, defenders tackling in space, that's going to have to be key. One other just stat to give you in terms of kind of what to watch for in this one: the Colts, despite all their issues offensively, they are number 1 in the NFL on first down. They're gaining 7.5 yards per play on first down. I imagine some of those are coming from some of the big hitters they've had. I don't know when Pierce's scores have come. The point is, they are gaining ground on first down. Pittsburgh is 31st on first down at 3.7 yards per play. So can Pittsburgh win on first down defensively and then, of course, be better offensively? I'll be watching for that number in this game.
Yeah, and when it comes to the run game, whether it be the quarterback or Jonathan Taylor, they like to use some of these long pulls as well too. They like to get those offensive linemen out on the defensive backs and get their alleys out there on the edge. So Joey Porter and Dante Jackson, they better pack the lunch. They better get hydrated pretty good before this game, because they're going to be probably 4, 5, 6 plays in this game where they're going to have a big offensive lineman, a guard bearing down on them.
Yeah, they like running counter trey. They like running bash too, which bashes back away, where they're going to pull the guard, say, to the left, the back's going to go to the right, so the quarterback can hand off to the running back and kind of go against where the guards are pulling, and where often linebackers key, or the quarterback can keep the ball himself and go to the left with the pullers. And so that's the bash scheme. The Eagles run it pretty significantly. I know the Ravens have run it in the past, and so have to defend some of that power element of the run game as well. Any other thoughts with the Colts offense, Dave?
No, just be wary of that big play on down the field, because he certainly has the arm. So going to have to take the ball away a couple of times in this game, specifically if Richardson puts it in harm's way, which I expect. His turnover worthy throws, to me, probably he's gotten away with a few of them as it is. He's already thrown a high level of interceptions, and there were several instances where I was watching all 22 saying, "Oh man, why did he throw that?" Overall, so I'm expecting the secondary could have a field day in this one for the Steelers, and it could really make a huge impact in this game.
Or it could go the other way. I mean, they could have some big plays allowed, and so you have to be able to prevent those overall. Richardson has only been sacked 4 times, but he's averaging a 2.97 snap to throw time, and so there's a chance to hopefully get after him on some of those longer throws he's waiting to develop downfield. So I want to watch for that one as well.
Yeah, don't give him time to do that. If he gets past that 2.5 mark, and once again, getting to him and getting him down on the ground is 2 different things.
Yeah, that's a great point there too, Dave. All right, flipping over to this Colts defense, and it's been tough sledding for them overall. I thought they had a much better game against the Bears. They really did a good job against the run without DeForest Buckner at that. But teams have run on the Colts a ton, in part due to some of the guys they faced. They played Green Bay in week 2, and that was Malik Willis's first start, and they ran the ball 53 times. Green Bay did in that game, but they had a ton of success in this one. So I think you have to be able to run the ball. I think, and Nate kind of alluded to this, the Colts are using some bigger people to try to replace Buckner, 2 nose tackles out there. I think they two gap well. I think against some of the 11 personnel, they've done a good job winning some of the one-on-one battles up front. I know it's not exactly Pittsburgh's personality, but more perimeter type runs, some of the toss game, perimeter game, even receiver run game. I think that coupled with some window dressing, some heavy motion to kind of freeze the linebackers. I think that might be the ticket in this one today, Dave, or Sunday, Dave.
Didn't the Bears have a couple? Didn't most of the Bears' success come on perimeter tosses?
I think they had a bit more. They only ran like 2.3 yards per carry. I don't think they really had much success, period. But yeah, they really had no success along the interior. The Colts had a great goal line stand end of the half, for example, like 4 straight run stuffs. So it's tougher to, I think, go up the middle on these guys.
If you do use more 11 personnel in this one, some design quarterback runs, stretch them out. I keep waiting for that 50-yard Justin Fields run. I really want to see how the Steelers use their quarterback run game in this one and the success they can have, because I think there's some success there. You talk about those big bodies up front, though. I think especially if they start Mason McCormick and don't do any of this rotation or anything like that, that interior of the Steelers offensive line of McCormick and Zach Frazier and James Daniels, I think they can wreak some havoc in here. If they can get to that second level and get bodies on Franklin and EJ Speed, those kind of guys, I think there's some yardage to be had up the gut on these guys defensively, and it will be fun to watch Frazier go up against some of these bigger boys.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple different ways to attack it. I think I don't want to necessarily be an 11 all day. I was kind of more open to 11 against the Chargers. I think you can and need to be more heavy against the Colts in this one, but it's less about running duo up the middle. To me, I'd like to run some power. I thought the Packers had success on some of their gap runs where they're getting really strong double teams up front on those big nose tackles. Grover Stewart's always been great against the run. He's a veteran. And then kind of taking on some of those smaller, undersized linebackers like in EJ Speed. So I'm not saying to run, crack toss 10 times in this game, but a couple times, some receiver motion. And I do think the gap scheme, kind of like the Denver game where I said gap scheme was kind of going to be more the ticket. So I think you can go 12 personnel, be heavy, but don't run up the gut quite as often. I think some more of the power. I think a little less inside zone in this game. I wouldn't use that as often. I would kind of lean on some of the perimeter runs, crack toss, gap runs, receiver runs. That's kind of my approach to run game success in this one.
All right, about passing game success in this one. I'm not expecting the next gen stats passing chart to show a lot of passes from Justin Fields down the middle of the field past 10 yards past the line of scrimmage. They like to try to keep a lid on this. You see a lot of middle of the field close kind of stuff on this. The way that you can try to pop them here is get the single high look that you need with George Pickens on the outside. Take a couple of shots down the field that way. Maybe should be some of those cover 2 opportunities when they're in cover 2 to hit those honey hole shots. We saw a little bit of Fields to Van Jefferson, right? During training camp, kind of those sideline hole shots there might be a opportunity to get Van Jefferson, three of those kind of hole shots, if you will, about 12 yards down past the line of scrimmage there. So I'm not expecting a lot of middle of the field work outside of when they are maybe in zone and you get Pat Freiermuth to settle on some of those soft areas there. So the explosive plays, I think, for the Steelers will come outside the numbers in the passing game and potentially maybe a home run in this one as well too. But once again, I think you got to pick your shots. This secondary is going to probably be, we'll obviously see what happens with Kenny Moore at the nickel there, but their corners as a whole, I don't think match up very well, whoever decides to be lined up against George Pickens.
Yeah, that secondary is hurting for sure. Yeah, they're a zone team. I mean, that's Gus Bradley coach. You think about Seattle, they're cover 3. And so you're getting a lot of the same here in Indy. I think first down play action and throwing outside and vertical is going to be key. I know Pittsburgh and Arthur Smith references, they took a shot on first down last week. Well, they tried to, it wasn't there, and Fields tucked and ran the ball. But I think under center, true play action, because the Colts, they love rolling Nick Cross down, put 8 in the box on first down, stop the run. Even more important, without, Buckner being around, play a lot of single high on first down, a lot of cover 3. And so I think you go with a couple of vertical shots. I want to see George Pickens on a 1st and 10. Maybe not the first play of the game, because the Colts might kind of have that in the back of their mind. Maybe that second drive, that first and 10, you take a shot vertically for Pickens one-on-one on the outside. What
about if you get a sudden change situation around the 43?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you love taking a deep shot there if you get that turnover to really, multiply the big plays when the Colts are kind of scrambling. So I think 1st and 10 deep shots will be kind of the ticket in this game, Dave.
George Pickens could come out of this with a big game.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think the Colts secondary is super concerning. You throw the injuries on top of that overall. But yeah, they play. I mean, they're a zone. I mean, what was you had the chart. I mean, they were like 1% man coverage. They do say, I think they play they play some match coverages, but on third down, they'll man up, I think, and they'll bring some pressure. So that's kind of the time I do see man coverage, and they blitz a little bit more for kind of a 4-3 front there. But yeah, they don't play dime. I mean, it's Speed and Franklin out there the whole time. And so I think in some of those third down situations, you might be able to get some good matchups.
They're a type of defense that wants to try to make you put together 14 play drives overall by trying to keep a shell on it. But they're still susceptible to giving up the big plays outside the numbers overall. And man, if you can get that run game working early and build, like you said, play action off of that, you can hit them for a home run or 2 in this one.
Yeah, and like all teams in some of those pass situations, they're going to get kind of funky with the D-line. They're going to line guys wide, or they're going to line 3 to one side and one backside defensive lineman, and run some twists in games, which, again, I say that every week, it feels like, because every team's essentially doing it. One other just very random note that probably will have no impact on this game, but I want to mention it just because it was interesting. The Bears caught a Hail Mary at the end of the first half against, it was caught at the 1. It was tipped down, and DJ Moore was right behind it and caught it. They did not score, but there was a completed Hail Mary. And so if we're ever in that situation, again, if Pittsburgh's ever in a Hail Mary and a half end the game, watch out for that tip. Have somebody behind, because the Bears got one last week. All right, Dave, any other thoughts here on the Colts? I think it's a group that certainly Pittsburgh can have success against. I don't want to assume that, and the Colts did a good job against Chicago, so kudos to them. They made life tough on that Bears offensive line and Caleb Williams. They held them to 16 points, so I don't want to assume it's going to be a cakewalk, but it's a much less formidable group than what the Chargers were, for example.
Just win the rock throwing game.
Yeah, and that is Pittsburgh style. All right, Dave, any other final thoughts here with this Colts game?
No, sir. I think we should get to our picks now.
We should. Just one other quick note. I should have mentioned this earlier in the show, just not to look ahead, but Micah Parsons hurt his left ankle last night. And I think it might be counted as a sprain, high ankle sprain. And so I want to see his stats for that week 5 game against Pittsburgh. He may not be available, which of course will be huge for Pittsburgh.
Lawrence, they also had a foot injury in that game as well, too. So that's something to watch. Obviously, they've got the extended time. Parsons seems to be saying all the right things after the game, thinking that, hey, I'll be fine and all like that. But that will be something to watch after we get through this game on Sunday to see how the Cowboys injury report shakes up. That there were a lot of dinged up players, it seemed, when it came to a lot of flags and a lot of dinged up players last night in that game, Cowboys and Giants.
All right, Dave, let's get to our it's already week 4 picks. And man, you hit it right on the head there. It was a 5-point game last night. You took the Giants. I took the Cowboys. You are 1-0. I am 0-1 to start the week. So
yeah, thank God for the late shift of the half point there, because I needed that half point. 5.5. I had 5.5 plus the Giants, and you had the Cowboys minus 5.5. Let's get into week 4. The Broncos go on the road and play the Jets. The Jets are 8-point home favorites. What say you?
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Jets in this one. They're playing good ball. Rodgers, that group is rolling right now, Dave.
I like that. That defense for the Broncos is underrated. I think the Jets win this. I'll take the 8 points on the road from the Broncos. How about the Vikings at the Packers? I don't know if we know yet if Love's going to play in this one, but regardless, the Packers are 3-point home favorites against the Vikings in a NFC Central North.
Yeah, you're going old school.
Going old school there. Packers hosting the Vikings. Packers -3.
I'll go with Minnesota.
I will take the Packers late at 3 points here. Bengals on the road, trying to get off the 0-3 schneid, if you will. They take on the Panthers. The Bengals are 4.5-point road favorites in this one against the Panthers.
Kudos to Andy Dalton. Kudos to Deontay Johnson. His first touchdown as a Panther. They're now an NFL offense again, but I think that 1 week, I don't want to call it a mirage, but it's not going to be always this good. I'll take the Bengals. They can't go to 0-4, right, Dave? It's not going to happen.
I agree with you. They will be 1-3 after this one with a comfortable win. Give me the Bengals lay the 4.5 points. How about the Eagles on the road against the Buccaneers? This should be a good game. The Eagles are 1.5-point road favorites against the Buccaneers.
Yeah, the Bucs look pretty bad last week. Like you said, that Broncos defense is good and held Tampa Bay in check. I'll still go with Philadelphia.
I'll take the Buccaneers plus the 1.5. I think the Buccaneers can win this one outright. How about the Jaguars struggling? Go on the road against the Texans. The Texans 6.5-point home favorites against the struggling Jaguars.
Yes, I need Doug Peterson hot seat, first coach to get fired. Potentially, I'll say Texans win, but Jaguars find a way to cover.
I'll take the Texans to win and cover. I'll lay the 6.5 points there. Saints on the road against the Falcons, another big divisional game this week on the NFC side. The Falcons are favored by 2.5 points at home with those throwback red helmets that look absolutely fantastic. Falcons laying 2.5 against the Saints.
What is that a throwback to? The 70s Falcons? What era did they wear those?
Did they wear them a little bit in the 80s too? I mean, I know in the late 70s I think they did, but okay. That's a sharp looking uniform they have.
Saints appear to have Kamara in this one. Obviously, pulled back to earth last week. I will take the Saints, Dave.
I'll take the Saints to win this one outright too. Give me the 2.5 points. The Rams on the road against the Bears. Boy, the Rams really showed up against the 49ers. Even so, the Bears are 3-point home favorites against the Rams.
Yeah, I've done a really bad job picking Rams games this year. I don't know. Give me the Rams.
Give me the Rams as well, too. I think McVay just outcoaches them there. Patriots on the road against the 49ers who are banged up, but it sounds like they might have Kittle back this week. 49ers laying 10.5 against a Patriots team that just itching to make the switch to May at quarterback, and boy, their line is just horrible. So 49ers laying 10.5 at home against the Patriots.
Yeah, it's a big line, but the advantage. I mean, the Patriots have a good defense, so they do keep the scores down. And man, it sucks for Javon Hargrave. He's out for the season with a partially torn triceps. I don't know where I want to go in this one. Yeah, you know what? I'll say the Patriots cover. I'll probably regret this one. They don't win, but they'll cover.
I'll go the other way. I'll take the 49ers to cover that 10.5. Washington on the road against the Cardinals, who are either one of these teams. Boy, Daniels looked great. Several of those throws against the Bengals. Are they going to be smelling themselves too much for this one? I don't know. Cardinals laying 3.5 at home against the Commanders.
Yeah, I don't want to just overlook the Cardinals here. They've had their moments too, but it's really hard to ignore what Washington did. Even though defensively they did struggle. We talked about how bad that defense kind of got cooked last week. I'll go with Washington.
I smell a rat in this one. Something don't add up. Because of that, I'll take the Cardinals. I'll lay the 3.5 against the Commanders. Chiefs on the road against the Chargers, who are banged up. Chiefs are 7-point road favorites out in LA against the Chargers.
I think Herbig will play. I think a similar situation as last week. I think that defense for the Chargers, their ball control offense, will keep the score down. I know they have all these injuries, but I'll say the Chargers at least cover.
I'll take the Chiefs lay to 7. I'll go opposite you this one. Browns on the road against the Raiders in Las Vegas. The Raiders are 1.5-point home favorites and starting to wonder about their coaching hot seat there. Raiders -1.5.
Yeah, I don't have a great feeling either way in this one, Dave. I will go. Give me the Browns.
I'll take the Raiders late 1.5 on this one. Bills versus Ravens in what should be a fantastic game. The Ravens are 2.5-point home favorites against the Bills.
Yeah, it's going to be a great one overall. I think the Ravens just have to figure out the O-line a little bit, and then they'll be in good shape overall. This one's tough. Give me the Ravens.
I'll take the Bills plus the 2.5 in this one. I think Bills win it outright. Titans, 2 Monday night games again. Titans on the road against the Dolphins. The Dolphins, 1-point home favorite against the Titans.
One of us is going to have a really good week, Dave. One of us is going to have a really bad week. Who's even starting for the Dolphins? We even know, is it Thompson? Is it Huntley? Is it Boyle?
Feels like it might be Snoop in this one.
Yeah, I think it should be. I think he's their healthiest and their best option right now, to be honest with you. Give me the Titans.
I'll take the Titans as well, too, and at 1 point. Seahawks, the other good game should be good. Seahawks on the road against the Detroit Lions. Lions laying 3.5 points at home against the Seahawks.
Not sure on Laporta's status right now. I will take the Lions, though.
You know what? I'll take the Seahawks plus that 3.5 points. I think the Lions win this, but by a field goal. So give me the 3.5 points there. Well, let's circle back to the Steelers game on the road against the Colts. The Steelers are 1.5-point road favorites against Indianapolis in this one with an over-under of 40 points in this one. What say you?
I didn't even know the over-under in this one, but it ends up being pretty relevant for my score prediction. I think there are some threats the Colts offer. Their big playability, where, it's because it's hard to do a 10-play drive against this Steelers defense, right? So you can beat them in a 60-yard completion. That can be a game changer in this one. But Richardson, as mistake-prone as he's been, as turnover-prone as he's been against this kind of defense, that is a bad recipe on the whole. Even if he gets Pittsburgh once or twice in this one, he'll make as many bad plays as he makes good ones. Don't want to overlook the run game, and Jonathan Taylor especially, what a great back he is. But Pittsburgh's run defense has just been rolling so far. Offensively, you've seen the improvement. They should be able to run the ball effectively in this one, all told. My over-under comes out right at 40. We got Pittsburgh winning this one 23-17.
Okay. I gave it away earlier in the week that I was not picking against the Steelers this week. I'm not picking against them come time to make my prediction. However, it feels like the Steelers should be a little slightly more favored in this one, doesn't it? But 1.5 there, I think this ends up being a 1-point game. And I think it ends up coming just under the over-under of 40 by 1 point. I have a weird score for you this week. Steelers 20, Colts 19 in a nail biter once again.
It's the second time you've had a 2019 prediction, I think, right? How are the Colts getting to 19? Bunch of field goals? You think they're going to...
There will be a safety in this game.
Okay, and I assume the Colts will be benefiting from that to get to that 19.
Somehow, there will be a safety in this game. 2019 Steelers win to move to 4-0.
Let's play the game. Let's do it each week since we both picked Pittsburgh. Let's say the Colts win, and we're talking Colts win on Monday, Dave. How did Indy pull this one off?
Their run game was very good. Patrick Queen did not play a good game, and Richardson has 2 touchdown passes longer than 40 yards.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think they win by some of those long touchdowns, some of the just physical talent that's tough to match up with whenever Richardson is at his best. And I'll say that Pittsburgh tried to run up the middle too much, and it did not work, would be the recipe to lose this one.
All right.
All right, Dave, let's get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
All right, from brother George O'Donery from Northeastern University, longtime listener of the show. Let's see. Hi, guys. I just watched another Alex's videos and wanted, as a fellow educator, to take a moment to tip my hat to Alex for the great job he does with these videos. I learn a lot from them. His latest video was a review of Zach Frazier's performance in the first. Wait. This was
it feels like an old email.
Yeah, here's another one. he's got him in a string here. I'm sorry.
I
As a former WVU employee, I'm thrilled to see all the praise that Zach Frazier is getting. His career trajectory looks like it will outpace Ryan Mundy's. However, I'm keenly worried about the concerns both Alex and Dave raised about Zach's ability to play against big nose tackles. So I'm still worried. I will admit I'm a novice when it comes to analyzing this level of game. For instance, did the Chargers nose tackle shrink at halftime? To me, it looked like he's got San Diego in here. He's old school like me. Still calls him San Diego. It looked like DL was dominating in the first half and not the second. Previously, you guys said that this was something he was going to have to address with technique and not cheeseburgers. I believe you suggested that his wrestling background might be a really bonus in regard. So I was wondering, one, has Zach faced a large nose tackle yet? If so, how did he do? And number three, if not, do you think he has shown anything to allay those concerns? So a question about Zach Frazier gets bigger bodies, and we should get a chance to see him go up against some big bodies on Sunday.
Yeah, Grover Stewart's a veteran, great run defender. Yeah, I mean, just in general, to be fair, most centers have to deal with the bigger nose tackles. Most centers aren't as large as some of those big 0-1 techs. Centers are typically the smallest offensive linemen, and those tackles are not always the case. I mean, there's different shapes and sizes, but those kind of true run stuffers are always going to be bigger, always going to be a challenge. Yeah, I mean, Frazier, I think, has alleviated a lot of concerns. He's been playing great football overall. And in terms of the guys he's faced, I mean, I think about week one and Eddie Goldman and Grady Jarrett, two really good defensive linemen. Goldman kind of more of a run stuffer than a Jarrett type, but I thought Frazier held up. I've not really seen any issues of him being overwhelmed. There still might be some concern against those real top end D tackles that have just better physical traits and tools than what Frazier has, but so far it's been really good for Zach Frazier across the board.
Man, he's so good using his hands and keeping them inside and takedowns. And I mean, this will be a fun one to watch against those bigger bodies, but I think he's done he has been advertised and more so far, and he should only get better. So it will be interesting to watch him go up against these bigger guys this week on the Colts. Devin Murphy writes in, don't let your heads get too big, but the podcast is a highlight of my week. I look forward to it every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Well, we won't let it get to our heads, but we appreciate you saying that just the same, Devin.
Thank you.
Green Dot, he says, after hearing Tomlin say he gives as much attention to Queen as he does Fields and Russell Wilson, it made me wonder if the green dot wear is underrated or how much you can disguise the green dot's flaws. Who have been the green dots over the past 15 years? It isn't something that you quickly reference online. How did that correlate to success? All right, that's a different type of question. Man, the green dot circulated quite a bit last year, didn't it? But going back traditionally, you've seen guys like Timmons and Shazier and those kind of guys on the defensive side of football. They had that experiment that TJ Watt didn't enjoy, where he had to wear it due to injuries and all like that. Look, ideally, you want that to be an inside linebacker when it comes to the Steelers, a guy that's on the field, obviously, 100% of the time, because the ability to get the call in, get things communicated, get the play communicated pre-snap, get any changes done pre-snap. It is a very important position. Now, I think the most interesting part of this question is how much can you disguise the green dot's flaws, Alex?
Yeah, I'm not really sure how to interpret that question. What do you think that means, to disguise the green dot's flaws?
I would just think maybe the switching of personnels and groupings and stuff that makes him have to maybe make changes after the initial play call is communicated out, maybe hurry up situations to kind of test the green dot's flaws, I would think. So it'd be along the lines of thinking quick on your feet and getting that stuff communicated out is where my head goes the way this question's phrased.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I can see that. I mean, yeah, I think you said that probably pretty well. How do you handle teams that do a lot of checks and late in the play clock because the radios get turned off after 15, or whenever there's 15 seconds left on the play clock? Hurry up. Those types of things for sure. I can see that. Playing at home, we talk about crowd noise, how it impacts the offense when Pittsburgh's at home for the opposing offense, but that obviously impacts Pittsburgh's defense. In some ways, playing on the road is easier for the defense because the crowd is silent when their own offense is on the field, and so it's easy for the defense to communicate. So those factors to be considered. But yeah, I don't really have a great answer in terms of disguising the floss part. I think he probably touched on it as well as possible. And then, yeah, typically it's an inside linebacker, Ferrier, Timmons, Shazier. It's been passed around, like you said, in more recent years. And I think, Watt talked about that. So 2019, Watt had to wear the green dot, like the 2 plays he was on the field or off the field, they scored, whatever the stat was. So ideally, it's 100% of the snap guy. Ideally, it's an inside backer. He's kind of in the middle of it all. And so it's easy to communicate to the D-line, to the safeties, as opposed to a safety wearing a green dot. And if you're away from the play, it's harder to talk and communicate. So that's why it was important to acquire Queen and for Queen to be that guy now.
All right, Brett Niles back in our email machine with multiple questions. Let's roll through them real quick here. Is Joey Porter the best Steelers cornerback since Rod Woodson?
I wouldn't go that far. I'd say Ike Taylor, he's got to get to that point, and hopefully he can be on par and is maybe in that direction, but I wouldn't even call him better than Ike right now. And so yeah, I think we're still in wait and see on that one.
Yeah, let's let him if he wants to change jersey numbers to a single digit, what does he have to do, Alex?
He's got to make the All-Pro season. That was a funny story that Porter had told. Because remember, the story was whenever Porter came out was I'm wearing 24 for Uncle Ike, and it was partially true, but only partially because he was denied wearing a single digit. He wanted number 5 or number 8 because he knew number 9 he couldn't get his college number because of Chris Boswell, and so he had to kind of settle for the double digit. And then once Patrick Queen got number 6, Porter texted Coach T and was like, "What the heck?" And Tomlin said, "Once you get the All-Pro season, we'll talk about it."
He wants to know, why was Beanie Bishop on the field for the Hail Mary and not George Pickens or James Pierre?
Well, I mean, we've seen sometimes receivers or offensive players play on Hail Marys. I know Gronk would do some of the Hail Mary stuff, and one time that worked out really bad when they lost to the Dolphins. But, obviously not every team is going to do that. And it's not always about putting your biggest people out there. You just want kind of good coverage guys. So Pierre just got in here. It's fine to have Beanie out there. I have no issue with it.
Let's see here. What's another part of the question here? Would Nick Herbig be a starter on some other teams? How many-ish would he be?
I mean, putting scheme issues aside, if you run a 4-3, then, I mean, he could probably start as an off-ball linebacker. He wouldn't be a traditional probably 4-3 defensive end. But yeah, I mean, I don't know how many for sure, but a lot of teams out there, I think he'd probably start for either off-ball or true edge for 3-4 fronts for probably, I don't know, 2/3 of the league or something.
Who is that slightly undersized edge rusher out of, was it Wisconsin?
Van Ginkel?
Yeah, my Van Ginkel boy. If that guy can be a starting edge in the NFL for a team and has, then Herbig most definitely could. How many teams? I mean, we'd have to roll through all the depth charts and all like that as far as it stands right now. All I will say about this right now when it comes to Herbig, it is going to be fun to, and we said this early in the show, watch him play a full complement of snaps on Sunday against the Patriots there. But yeah, I think Herbig could start for some other teams. How many? I'm not entirely sure. Can the NFL fine Harbaugh for his comments about the suspension to Derwin James?
I don't know if it reached the level of fine worthy. Basically, should have mentioned this Wednesday. I apologize that Derwin James was suspended for one game, in part, and really, it was for multiple reasons or multiple incidents, but most notably the hit on Pat Freiermuth in the second half of that game that led to a penalty for launching. Then Harbaugh said he disagreed with the call, thought it was clean, thought that Freiermuth somehow put James' helmet into his helmet with his stiff arm. I don't know. It was a weird comment. It didn't critique the NFL enough in my mind to view that as fine.
I agree. Bryce, this is the last one. Hey guys, it's Bryce. Steelers better be ready for Jonathan Taylor and freakish quarterback mobility and Richardson. Here's a question in terms of Justin Fields and mobility. Fields has a live arm. He can really drive the football anytime he wants to. Here's my question though, in terms of running quarterbacks. Is Fields in that number 2 spot, second only to Lamar Jackson? Who are your top 5 running quarterbacks in the league today? I mean, look, who is the guys that can flip the field? When I think about trying to rank guys in the importance of overall mobility, I want to talk about the guys that can 50 yards later be standing in the end zone. There's a lot. Look, even Patrick Mahomes is still elusive and very mobile. You talk about guys like Josh Allen, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, but is that guy going to run 50 yards down the field on you? I guess what I'm getting at here is there's different levels of mobility. I mean, you're going to see one on Sunday in Richardson there. But as far as guys that can flip the field, though, who would those guys be? Lamar Jackson's obviously up there. What about Hurts?
Hurts is up there. Yeah, I think do you define it? And I assume that it's going to be the latter, the two options of like the scrambler that can keep the play alive, like that's Mahomes, or the guy past the line of scrimmage. Like you got the behind the line guys that can extend, and the past the line of guys that are true runners. I assume this is more the latter in terms of like guys that can, as you said, break off the 50-yard run.
Yeah, he doesn't clarify here, but that's, and we're not going to go through here and rank the top 5 and all, but look, Fields can house it on you, right? Period.
Yeah, I would say my answer, just rough top 5, top of my head. Fields, and you could even argue Fields is number 1 in Chicago. He was, he had a 1,000-yard season. Fields, Lamar, Josh Allen, like you said, Kyler Murray, and then that last one, Hurts is a good one. Man, Jaden Daniels is running the heck out of the football too. I know it's early, but I mean he's a big time threat. I might be missing a name here. Richardson could be mentioned as well. I might say Jaden right now. I know it's super early, but this guy can take off and be a threat. But Hurts is also a good suggestion.
All right, I'm just ready to see Fields house one here.
You think he does? Do you think he gets a big run this week?
All right, let's do this. Will Fields have a run over or under 29 yards in this
29.
game?
I was going to say 20. I made my answer easier. I will say
20 would have made it easier, right? Because you could just, you expect him to scramble at least once or twice in this game for more than 15, I would think.
Well, his longest only 16 in the first 3 games. All right, I'll take the under on 29. I'm going to get ahead of this.
All right, I'll take the over on 29. Would 16 be a number that make you think over under?
Yeah, I think that should give me 20. I would have thought. Also, the Colts play so much zone, and they have eyes on the quarterback that's going to maybe limit some of those great runs. I think against a Denver, for example, where they had their 16-yard rush, Fields did. That was a more man-heavy team. I'll say he gets in that 15 to 20 yard as his longest run of the game.
Okay, I think he has an explosive run. Period.
So 20 plus.
Right.
All right. I hope you're right.
I hope I do as well too, or am. Okay, I think we got through most of them here. Alex, any final thoughts? Any late breaking news coming in? Should we sit here and just wait for dead air for 5 minutes and then and then broadcast the news that comes out? Any closing thoughts?
Trying to fool the football gods as I can't talk here. What did you think about PFF's new chip stat that has TJ Watt the most chip player in the NFL this year?
Well, about time. Dude, they all along though they haven't been classifying that as a double team, right?
No, and that was the issue. And a little inside baseball during the offseason, and this is really my fault for dropping the ball. We as a site were working on a study about examining how often Watt was chipped and focused, because we knew that double teams or chips did not count as double teams under PFF, which I think is faulty logic. And we were trying to do some of that, but it was a lot of time and never finished the study. But there's certainly PFF was lacking in the past in the context of the attention TJ Watt received.
Right. I agree there. And it's not surprising that he's almost double. What was the stat? Who's in 6?
Yeah, he's like at 44%. Really, no one else I think was even really that close to him. I think they said last year, at least someone said that Garrett was chipped more last year. I don't know, but yeah, at least PFF's putting some context, because the double team rate in the way that they couched it did not really accurately reflect the attention that TJ Watt receives.
All right. Okay. We will be back on Monday, hopefully talking about the 4-0 Pittsburgh Steelers. And regardless of what happens, we will break down the game and talk everything pertinent to it and post game and all like that. So in the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter/X at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex Kozora at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and you want to donate to the site, the cause, SteelersDepot.com, hit the donate button. That'll take you to PayPal that way. Also, if you like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com, hit the ad-free button. Follow the directions that way. Get yourself a username and password. Make sure to log in once you get that to take advantage of the ad-free experience on SteelersDepot.com. Thank you for an amazing week on the site, the podcast. We can't do it without you. We appreciate all of you that listen to this show specifically. And until Monday, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.